The penetration of digital payments in India started with the metros, started with the big cities. Most people sitting in this audience would all be using a PhonePe or perhaps a GPay or a Paytm or some other app. That penetration by COVID end had got to every city in tier 2. But the remarkable thing that actually happened during the pandemic is that that revolution actually also reached our villages. Tier 6 cities are cities with 5,000 or less people. Tier 2 and below is about 70% of India. We're making progress, but we have miles to go. And I think that's our first North Star. We want to make sure that at least in payments, if not in other categories, we are able to light up India coast to coast, pillar to post, right? So 40% is where we are at. We have lots to cover. So let's talk about how we think or how we're going about trying to build a great company. Building great products in the startup world, we all use them, we like them, but one of the unfortunate things in the last couple of decades is durable multi-generational companies have stopped getting created. All of us can think about that really good app that we used 20 years ago that exists no more, whether it's a Yahoo that gets replaced with a Google, whether it's a MySpace that gets replaced with a Facebook. The longevity of companies has gone down. One of the things that we're trying to do, we started, before we figured out what PhonePe would do, given that we were starting the company a little later, we were almost 40, Rahul, myself. Our third co-founder is actually based in the US, but he was building because his father, who's no longer with him, told him to build for India. So he was one of those NRIs that was being talked about earlier today. He wanted to build. We had learnings. And we said, let's build a company which has a foundation very deeply rooted in culture and values, learn from the Tatas and the Infosys and the sort of stalwarts of the industry. So what we actually have is a pretty elaborate set of culture and values that kids hate. We literally indoctrinate them. These are written on every building in our office. You get them with your orientation kit. We make you rehearse them as much as you can. But they're sacred to us because they remind us whether you're doing well or you're not, whether the markets are good or they're not. These remind us the mission that we are on. These remind us the kind of company we want to create. And I didn't put heat to it when I was building my first startup. We made money, we got users, but the company did not have a binding value system that made us navigate issues, market changes, pandemics and whatnot. I think as you sort of make your early mistakes and become a serial entrepreneur, one of the things that you really learn to treasure is institution building. And so one of my favorite ones in this is at the bottom left. We call it positive disruption. It's very, very personal to PhonePe. We talk about the fact that we will not disrupt somebody's profit pool just because we can. We will increase the size of the pie of any market we enter. Otherwise, we will not enter. Now, why is that important? Everyone's talking about the economy in terms of macros. 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 10 trillion, 20 trillion, 50 trillion. These things don't happen in macros. You can track them in macros, but they happen at the grassroots in terms of compounding in daily lives. So you got to create enablers. And if you take capital in the startup world, we see this all day long. One of the realities is that if there's a really exciting market opportunity, 50 venture capitalists and 100 good entrepreneurs will chase it, and margins go to zero, and you're cutting each other instead of creating. One of the things we love about India Stack and DPI is things like UPI open up markets, things like account aggregator open up markets. So we work very closely with them.